Hello, and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. Today's podcast number 1649. The topic is mindset, and the title is Build Others Up. So I want to share a story from one of my clients. I'm going to change a little bit of the details to protect their identity, but I want to share the story because I think it's a really fun lesson that we all can kind of learn and benefit from. So my client had a friend who went to the gym. They met with a trainer, and they wanted to ask the trainer what they should do. They've started some new habits. They were wanting to get healthier, and they thought this would be like a good kind of next step. So they met with the trainer, and the trainer actually said, well, instead of me telling you what to do, why don't you tell me what you do? So the friend explained how they ate, they explained how they trained, and the trainer responded, "You're doing everything wrong." Gut punch, right? And they explained to the friend the mistakes they were making in nutrition, the mistakes they were making in training, just kind of berated them and said everything they were doing wasn't good enough, and it just really left the friend feeling discouraged. They had gotten the session with the trainer because they had wanted to build on the consistency they had with newer, healthier habits, and they really wanted to kind of take the next step. But the experience with the trainer killed their excitement and momentum. Well, that friend ran into my client, and they talked about the experience. So my client's friend said, well, I see you making progress. What do you do? My client asked, well, we would probably need different things since we're starting at different places and we're different people. Why don't you just tell me what you do, and that'll help identify some next steps to take. Well, surprisingly, the friend was still willing to do that again, so they actually told my client everything they do. And my client said, that's awesome. What a wonderful response. So my client pointed out that this friend has been consistent. They recognized the progressions that the person has made. They recognized the sacrifices and struggles that they're going through to make these progressions. And they praised their friend for their determination, their dedication, their willpower to be consistent. So my client built them up. They stayed truthful, and I'm going to come back to that in a second, but they built them up. The friend had left the conversation with the trainer feeling discouraged and going to quit. But the friend left the conversation with my client feeling fired up again and excited to get back on track and continue to push forward. In the story that my client told me, I want to share kind of what he ended with. So the last two paragraphs were, that was enough to get him fired up. He didn't feel like a failure. He saw he was succeeding. He didn't feel like everything was wrong. On the contrary, he saw it was great and that it could improve. He thought he'd have to change all of his eating habits to improve, but I showed him that adding only a thing here or there would already bring a lot of improvement. That mindset when it comes to helping is fantastic. I did it. I was there to help, but I wasn't able to communicate this way before. I used to be like that coach, judgmental and criticizing, pointing out what's wrong instead of highlighting everything that's good, and simply mentioning a potential next step to make it even better. That's all thanks to you. I did great in conveying your ideas, but I'm just an echo of what you preach, and it saves lives literally because it improves health. So thank you. And I really appreciated those kind words, and I was very thankful to have this experience shared with me. I really appreciate when my clients share things like this because it helps to know, it helps to have that motivation that it's a ripple effect, and you're helping more and more people. And it's also just really cool to see that my client got to experience something that I get to experience on a regular basis, is just how freaking good you feel by helping other people. Now, I want to share one of the things I responded to him with, and then we'll move on some more. But part of what I wrote back to him was, I appreciate you sharing the story of your friend. It is very unfortunate that the trainer was discouraging and scolding in his response to your friend. I've often found that negative responses like that are rooted in the trainer's desire to feel superior by reinforcing to themselves their self-value in respect to how much they know compared to other people, meaning that the trainer is lacking self-confidence and self-worth and trying to create it in an unhealthy way by putting other people down. And or they're wanting to increase the perceived value of their services. If I point out everything the person's doing wrong, they're going to really believe that hiring me is super important. And that is a horrible approach because you make people feel like crap. Definitely not a good approach. And then a third thing, and I don't really know how to properly explain it, but when we all learn something new, we tend to treat others who don't yet know what we learned negatively as an initial reaction. Now, I might be assigning this response maybe too broadly by saying most people, but it is quite common. When we learn something new, the old information presents itself in another person. So when we learn something new and then we see the information being processed by somebody else, and we see that they don't yet know, we often tend to respond aggressively, almost in a way of implying, how do you not know this yet? But it's funny because we had just learned it recently ourselves. So I wonder if it's some subconscious bias about ourselves, possibly feeling stupid for not having known it earlier, so we think of others as stupid for not knowing it yet. It's a common reaction, and I've actually trained a lot of trainers to become trainers, and I've taught a lot of students, over 500 plus people combined in those services. So I've seen it a lot, and I don't really understand the origin of it, but it does happen a lot. I'm super, super happy for you, and this is me saying it to my client, I'm super happy for you that you were able to be a positive encouragement for your friend. That's such a wonderful, fulfilling feeling to help someone and to do it in a way that builds them up. It's an amazing feeling. I'm super happy you were able to have that experience. So I was very, very, very happy for my client, because to be able to make that switch from judging others to encouraging others is such an amazing change in how we feel. When we focus on building others up, we get built up. When we focus on bringing out positivity in others, we bring out positivity in ourselves. It's unfortunate when people try to feel better about themselves by making others feel worse. It's common. It's very sadly common, because it's easier to try to put others down than it is to try to build yourself up. But I know that through the years of being a personal trainer, now I've been a personal trainer for over 20 years. I'm relatively young, but I started when I was young. So I've been a personal trainer for over 20 years. I've worked with well over 3,000 people. And I have grown to become a better person by helping others grow to become a better person. If we just try to prove how great we are, we stay the same. And then eventually we fall behind. And then we're too stubborn to realize that we're the problem, and we never improve, and we get into an endless cycle of blaming everyone and everything else. But instead, if we focus on growing others, building others, we in ourselves will grow. When you try to find the good things in other people, you get really good at finding the good things. And then when you go through struggles, you can find the good things better. It's amazing how much your life will improve when you focus on improving the lives of others. When you focus on growing other people, you grow. And that's something that I would encourage. I'm assuming that the audience that listens to this podcast, you're probably already doing this. But it's really cool to kind of keep it in mind, because we all get tired. We all have times where we're low on sleep, low on food, low on energy, high on stress. And sometimes we get kind of judgy McJudgersons of other people, and we kind of get frustrated. I know I do, so I'm hoping I'm not alone in that. Golly, I already, if I already feel like a bad person, I hope I'm not the only person. That makes me feel worse. But it's not uncommon that when we feel run down, we tend to put down other people. So it's important to remain focused on building others up, because that can bring you out of your funk. rather than keeping you in it. And it can actually keep you out of funks a lot better because, as I said, if you learn to find the good things for other people, you learn how to find it for yourself. So if you focus on being a positive support to other people, even if it's a little tiring at times, even if it's a little challenging, but if you focus on being a positive support for other people, it will bring positivity into your life. Now, you have to do it in a truthful way. So I mentioned that earlier. And there's a good story. I think his name is Simon Sinek. He wrote a couple really good books. But he was in an interview, and somebody asked him about, they were talking about this concept of building other people up but staying truthful. And he had a story that he shared that I thought was a really good story. He had a friend of his who was acting in a local play, like a local theater. And the friend got them tickets, got Simon tickets and said, hey, I really want you to come and watch this play. I would love to have you there. So he said he went to the play, and the play was awful. It was not good. It had some goods, but also not goods. And he saw his friend after the show, and his friend said, well, how'd you like it? And Simon could feel internally, he's like, well, I don't want to lie and say it was great. But at the same time, I don't want to make my friend feel bad. This is their opening night. This is their big experience. I don't want to rain on their parade, So what do I do in that moment? And he said that he told his friend, he said, I consider myself blessed to have been here to see you do your thing. It makes me feel so happy, so excited, and it's just such a wonderful experience to see you fulfilling your dreams and just getting to do what you love and you enjoy. I'm really happy for you. And they had a good time. They kind of smoothed the conversation over. And he said it was great because I got to give my friend a positive feeling in return because they were already so excited, so positive. It was definitely not the right environment to bring up any negatives. I didn't want to crush, their soul. He said, but at the same time, I'm not going to lie. I can't lie to people. I can't lie to myself. Because once I start lying to anyone, whether it's myself or other people, it's just easier and easier to lie because lies are often they're more comforting than the truth is. So you have to be very careful not to get used to lying because it starts to bleed over into everywhere else. So he said, I've found a way to be truthful but positive. He said, actually, what was interesting was a couple days later, the reviews for the play came out in papers, and they weren't that great. And his friend said to him, hey, I've really been reading these reviews, and people aren't really, liking the play. Like, what did you think of it? And Simon said, well, at that moment, they were actually coming to me for advice. And they were actually in search of positives and negatives. So at that time, I did say, hey, these were the things that stood out to me that were really good. These were the things that stood out to me that maybe could be improved upon. And he said it was a wonderful experience because they left that conversation closer in their bond. They were even better friends because Simon was able to build them up but be truthful and encourage them in ways that they could improve, which is exactly what my client got to experience. So when you're trying to build people up, you do need to be truthful. Don't try to lie. Just find the good things, whatever it can be. So like I said, my client, they praised their friend for being consistent with their new habits. They gave recognition of the progressions that they've made. They gave recognition of the sacrifices and struggles that they've been making. And they praised them for their willpower and dedication to develop that consistency. So a lot of that is giving recognition of what the other person is going through and praising them for what the goods are. If you can find them. That kind of thing. And I just loved that idea of the interaction, the way in which we communicate and connect with other people has significant impact not only on them but on us as well. If we focus on positives, it helps to build up the other person, but it also helps to build us up as well. So I really would encourage, if you think about what you put out into the world, whether it's on social media, whether it's in a conversation with friends, put out positivity. Now, I know life is not always perfect. Crap happens. But you don't need to live in the crap. And you don't need to throw your crap at other people. Don't be a monkey and just throw your crap at other people, right? So you can say, oof, I had a rough day. But there were some good things to it. Yeah, you don't have to tell everybody your entire day. You don't have to, kind of express your frustration in a way that dumps it into another person's life. So I would say really pay attention to your communication style. Do you bring positivity to conversations? Do you bring positivity out of conversations? When you put things out there in social media, does it breed positivity, or does it breed more hate, more criticism, more judgment, more negativity? The more you focus on positives, the more you focus on growing other people, the more positive you will be in your life, and the more you will grow as well. So hopefully that story was interesting. I thought it was kind of fun, and it kind of reignited that focus for me, is to try to remain positive and motivating with the people I speak to, especially the people I speak to on a regular basis, the people I love and are closest to me. I always want to make sure that I bring positivity to the conversations, and I hope that when I leave, there's a feeling of positivity as well. Okay, thought it would just be fun to share. If you want to reach out, tell any stories, share anything, add anything, ask any questions, my email is brutalirongym@gmail.com. If you like our podcast, please share it. The more people we share it with, the more people we can help. That's the whole point of the podcast, just help people live their healthiest and happiest life. If you want to, you can support the podcast with donations. There is a high hosting cost on a bunch of different platforms for the podcast every single year. So I appreciate the donations that people give as they go towards those costs to help kind of reduce some of that overhead for me. So I really appreciate it, and it helps kind of sustain this as a everyday kind of thing. So thank you very much. If you want to donate, you can do so on our website, www.brutalirongym.com. Even just $5 a month, $10 a month, whatever it might be, it all adds up, and I promise it all helps, and it's greatly appreciated. If you like the information we share in our podcast, you can find more from us on our social media channels. You can find us and follow us on Instagram and YouTube under the name Brutal Iron Gym. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.